Well, in this episode, we're going to talk about Amazonia. So first, we're going to talk about the landscape, the physical features of the Amazon region. So in terms of surface area, Amazonia covers almost 50% of Brazil. So it's almost half of the country. Doesn't look like it, but it is. So this whole area here is the Amazonia, the biome. So let's take a closer look into that. First of all, we have to talk about the Amazon River Basin, okay, which predominates in the area. As you can see here in this small map here, the biome, which is in yellow, is slightly different from the basin. Okay, so there are areas, especially in the north and to the east, that are part of the biome but are not in the Amazon basin. Okay, whereas in the south here you have areas of the Amazon basin which are not part of the Amazon biome. Okay, so here you have the basin with the major rivers, the main rivers. Of course, the Amazon River, running through, from the west to the east, to the mouth here in the Atlantic Ocean. The name Amazon comes from, allegedly comes from the 16th century explorers in Peru, Francisco de Orellana, who was allegedly attacked by indigenous people, and he reported that they were fierce women and reminded him of the Greek Amazonas, or the Amazon woman from the Greek mythology. So the name was established based on that. There's some controversy if that's true or not, but anyway, the name stick. And so we have the name for the region, the name for the river, the name, many states or departamentos in Brazil and other countries have departamentos or states called Amazonas. The Amazon basin is the largest in the world with 7 million square kilometers, and it takes up 40% of South America, which is a lot. Is also the largest in terms of discharge. It's estimated that 1/5 or 20% of global freshwater discharge to the ocean comes from the Amazon basin. The Amazon River is said to be the longest river in the world, but some disagree and argue that the Nile River in Africa is longer than the Amazon River. Regardless, I mean, it's not the first; it's probably the second. The source of the Amazon is still, I mean, not today, but up until very recently was controversial. Up until 2014, scientists argued that the source was right here in Peru near Cusco, at the Apurimac River, which flows into the Ucayali, which eventually flows into the Amazon proper. But this expedition a few years ago showed that actually the Mantaro River, which is right here, the source of it is the actual ultimate source of the Amazon. Of course, we're talking about the place that's most distant regarding the mouth. Okay, so could, like, any of the rivers here could be the source, and they're all sources, of course, but the most distant source, according to this study, is here in the Mantaro River, and drains to the Ucayali, which joins the Marañón here, and then becomes the Amazon here. Like I mentioned before, in Brazil, usually the upper part of the Amazon in Brazil, which is this one here, before it meets the Negro River, is sometimes called the Solimões, and then only the lower Amazon is called the Amazonas River. As you see here, there are many rivers: Araguaia, Tocantins, Xingu, Tapajós, Madeira, Purus, Juruá. They're all southern tributaries of the Amazon, and the northern tributaries are smaller here: the Trombetas, Paru. The Negro is a very large river, draining to to the to the north, and the Japura. And all these waters make up the river basin. One thing that's important to consider is the geological history of Amazonia and of the Amazon basin, river basin. Here you have an overview starting at 65 million years ago, long time ago, right after the extinction of dinosaurs. You have South America here, and you have this Pan-Amazonian region, which would be the whole area here. You see that you have rivers draining actually to the north in here. You see you have this retreat of marine conditions. If we move to about 33 to 23 million years ago, oh, you have the uplift of the Andes going on here already, okay? And it's still going on here. The triangles mean tectonic activity. At this point, you still have the rivers in Western Amazon draining to the north, okay, and some rivers to the east draining to the current mouth. So between 23 and 10 million years ago, you have this very interesting system where you have the division here, divide here, and then rivers here draining to the current mouth, and then here you have this Peba system, which is a mixture of it's a really large wetland, and it's a mixture of marine and freshwater wetlands. So, but you have marine incursions here. Here you have the evidence of marine flooding at 17 million years ago, for example, or even 13 million years ago. So it was a very dynamic place with marine incursion. And this would be a really, really huge wetland, but draining to the north. And then at about 10 million years ago, the current flow of the Amazon was finally established. And you have the Acre system here to the west, which now is a freshwater system draining to the Atlantic Ocean, to the current position of the Atlantic Ocean. The Panama Isthmus is in the process of closing, okay? So between 7 and 2.5 million years ago, you have the emergence of the Panama Isthmus, and then you have the Andes consolidating as a really tall mountain chain and throwing nutrients to the system of the Amazon River. And a lot of sediment runs through the river until you have the current conditions with the Eastern Amazonia, Western Amazonia, and Guyana Shield and Brazilian Shield. So the birth of the current Amazon system we can establish at about 10 million years ago, okay? So today we can see the Amazon as a vast lowlands and a few mountains, but this idea of a really monotonous and homogeneous landscape is not really true if we look closely. If you look from the space, maybe, but if you look closely, so you have some mountains. So for example, like I mentioned before, the Pico da Neblina is the highest peak in Brazil. It's almost 3,000 meters of elevation. It's right here at the border between Brazil and Venezuela. And then here, and you have other mountains, like especially Tepuis, which are these tabletop mountains that stand up, in the middle of a lowland forest. So the Tepuis, most of the Tepuis are in Venezuela. And Venezuela have a bunch of them, but they reach the border with Brazil and Guyana. And so this is a very fine example. There's Mount Roraima in the north of Brazil. Actually, there's the border between Brazil, Venezuela, and Guyana is up here. So you have this tabletop mountain with straight walls and waterfalls drain from there. So it's a really beautiful place and inspired writers such as Sir Arthur Conan Doyle to write books like The Lost World. Also, animations like Up, they take place there. It's like this is what it looks like in some of the tepuis on the top here. This is another tepui, Weasepu, adjacent to Mount Roraima. So it's just an amazing, it looks like you're in a different planet okay? And the fauna and flora there is very unique, and we're going to see that later on. So we have another feature of the Amazon, very typical of lowland rivers running through the forest, is the meandering rivers and eventually forming oxbow lakes. Okay, so here I have a aerial view of this region in central Bolivia, of the Mamoré River and the Grande River in 1985 and 2014. Okay. So we're talking about 30 years. Okay, we're not talking about thousands of years or millions of years. And then you have a big change in the landscape. So if you look here, for example, where the two rivers meet, you see there's a big difference on the meandering, the situation, and here also this area here is also different than this area here. So you have this reduced channel, and then you have the formation of the oxbows. The oxbows are this horseshoe-shaped paleo rivers, paleo channels that become lakes because they're isolated and become lakes adjacent to the river. Okay, so when you look at this at the landscape, you can see there's lots of them, lots of oxbow lakes surrounding the river because of the shape. Okay, and that's a very dynamic system. So think about it: if the plants and animals that are on one side of the river may end up on the other side of the river, not because they crossed the river, but because the river changed. All right. So it's a very dynamic system and very important for biodiversity and for ecology of the Amazon. Another interesting feature you can see from space is the difference between the waters of the river. So this is the meeting of waters, famous meeting of waters here near Manaus in the Amazon. So right here in the middle, like the heart of the Amazon. So here you clearly see the black waters of the Negro River with the white waters of the Amazon River. So the Amazon is flowing, so they're both flowing to the east here. And then the Negro meets with the Amazon here. You see that the water doesn't mix, they don't mix for a while. So the very different composition you can see from space. This is the city of Manaus, this very large city, more than 2 million inhabitants. It's a very large, if you can see here the Duque Reserve, Adolfo Duque Reserve, which is 10 by 10 kilometers exactly. So it's a precise square. So you see that the city is pretty big. Then you have also the clear water rivers, such as the Tapajós. So here the Tapajós is running with the clear water, which is more of a green-blue color, reaching again the Amazon River, which is white water. As you see, white water doesn't mean really white. It's like more of a brown color. But you can see that they're very, very different compositions of the water. Here is a map of the 3 different types of rivers. Of course, those rivers, I mean, some of them are really typical, clear water or black water or white water, but not all of them. So you can have some rivers are, a mix between the 2 conditions, but some are typical. So here you see in black, the black water rivers, especially in central Amazonia to the northwest. The white water rivers, such as the Amazon, okay, and especially in this area in western and southwestern Amazon. And then the clear water rivers, especially here, running from the Brazilian plateau to eastern Amazonia, okay. And so this is where you find most of them, and there's some here to the north as well. Okay, that's kind of the characteristics. So if we compare them, we see that white water rivers are muddy, like with this brown color. The water is really turbid, while the other 2 are really transparent, especially the black water rivers. Like I said, the blue-green color of clear water and darkly stained tea color black water rivers, but they're very transparent waters. The visibility is really low in white water, but really high in the other 2. A lot of suspended sediments, because that's why the visibility is low. And here you have crystalline waters. The pH is neutral in the Whitewater River, very acidic in the Blackwater River, and slightly acidic, but not as acidic as in the Blackwater River for the clear water. The productivity is high in the Whitewater and low in the other two. Rich in nutrients, Whitewater, and poor in nutrients, the other two. Okay. The seasonal floodplain. So every year you have a rainy season, and then the rainy season you have the water level going up a lot, sometimes like 10 meters up. Okay. So that's the seasonal flooding, natural flooding. Okay. And then when this occurs in whitewater rivers, we call that a varzea. So that environment is called varzea. Okay. But when it's in a clear water or a blackwater river, scientists call it igapó, which is the flooded forest, forest flooded by blackwater or clear water river. Whereas the forest flooded by whitewater river is the varzea. So varzea and igapó. Usually you have higher diversity in whitewater rivers than in blackwater or clear water rivers, okay, because more productivity, more nutrients, and so you have more animals, you have more diversity. And then in terms of wetlands, so wetlands are really a major feature of the Amazon. So flooded forests occupy a very large area. So if you look here, so along the Amazon, you have flooded herbaceous forests. You have large tracts of forest, of flooded herbaceous forest. So small trees and shrubs, okay? And here also, but then tall forest that gets flooded, you have a lot here and going up the Negro River here, going down the Juruá here, the Negro here, the Branco, the Amazon up here, the Maranhão and Ucayali here, near the mouth, the Marajó Island, which is this large island here. You have the flooded forest, okay? Well, that's a very typical feature of the Amazon. So here you see some views from within the forest. So that's the varzea. So that's the white water. You see that's muddy color, flooding the forest, which is a varzea forest. This stays like this for months in a row. Here's the igapó, which is very similar, but the water is black. This is terra firme forest, or the forest that doesn't get flooded during the year. So that's terra firme, so solid soil, let's say. But you also have other environments along the Amazon. Most of it is terra firme or varzea or igapó, but you also have some patches of other kinds of vegetation, such as palm swamps, Buriticais in Brazil, for example, or campina areas, open areas, so like campinaranas or campinas, which are herbaceous and grasslands, so you have patches of campinas, especially up the Negro River, okay? There are some other environments, but those are the main ones. Okay, so I guess that's it.